Welcome, welcome. I'm John, and this is the final episode of the Collector Series. We've covered Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, California, Italy, and the Old World regions beyond those. If you've watched all of them, you're going to have a better understanding of the collector wine market than most people will ever have. But we're not done, because there's a category of collectible wine we haven't touched, which is the New World outside of California. There's an Australian wine that was made in secret after the winery told the creator to stop. There's a South African producer who might be making the most undervalued great wine in Earth right now. There's a Chilean estate that beat First Growth Bordeaux in a blind tasting and changed South American wine forever. And there's a New Zealand Pinot Noir region that Burgundy producers are quietly watching very closely. Now, these are not curiosities. These are serious wines with real collector markets. And for anyone who's paying attention, and there's some of the most exciting value in the world of fine wine living out there today. Let's close this series out. Australia, from outback to world class. For most of the world, Australian wine means cheap Shiraz and Chardonnay in a bottle that has the kangaroo on the label. And that's actually a real shame because Australia has a handful of producers that make wine that belongs in any serious collection on earth. It's actually where I started. Penfolds Grange, this one, Australia's national wine treasure. This was created by Max Schubert in 1951. Schubert was Penfolds' chief winemaker. They sent him off to Europe, to Spain and Portugal, to study fortified wine production. He went on a side trip to Bordeaux, and he was inspired to make something world-class in Australia. He made an experimental Shiraz, aged in new American oak, bold, concentrated, unlike anything Australia had ever produced. And the problem with that? When Penfolds management tasted the early vintages in 1957, they hated them. They ordered him to stop. And Schubert's response? Well, with the help of a sympathetic colleague, Geoffrey Penfold Highland, he made 3 vintages in secret. 1957, 1958, and 1959, and hiding the barrels in the underground cellars at McGill. And when the board finally tasted the maturing wines in 1960, they'd realized what they created and reinstated production out in the open. Schubert had never missed a vintage. And by the way, if that story sounds familiar, it should, because the Sassicaia was made quietly for the family before going commercial. And the California wines were made by people who were told it couldn't be done. Every great wine region has a rebel origin story, and Grange is Australia's. Grange is a multi-region blend. It's mostly Shiraz with occasional Cabernet. It's aged in new American oak. Bold, concentrated, and ages for decades. Now, the secondary market for this wine is very strong, especially in Asia, where Grange has become a genuine status symbol. It's similar to how Lafite became prestige bottle for China. The great vintages, 1971, 1986, 1990, 1998, 2008, and 2010, command serious prices at auction. Grange is the one Australian wine that trades globally just like a First Growth. So if you own an Australian wine and you want to have the one that is a collectible one, it's this, Henschke Hill of Grace. The other contender for Australia's greatest wine. This is single vineyard Shiraz from the Eden Valley in South Australia. These vines were planted in the 1860s. They're some of the oldest Shiraz vines on earth. And where Grange is power and American oak, Hill of Grace is elegance and place. It's the Burgundy to Grange's Bordeaux. Stephen and Prue Henschke have been the driving force. The vineyard is essentially a museum, like a living museum for old vines. Smaller production than Grange, it's super site specific, and it just ages just as long. I haven't shared many personal stories in this series, but I'm going to share this one. Hill of Grace was the pandemic is over and we're eating in a restaurant wine. I had it with my best friend, so for me, it's like a personally unforgettable wine. And bottles mark a moment in your life. And so this one marked the moment the world started coming back during the pandemic. Other Australian names to know. Chris Ringland, tiny production Shiraz. Parker gave the 98 a perfect 100. It's got a cult status. It's actually really virtually impossible to find. Torbreck RunRig. This is David Powell's Barossa estate. It's a Rhone-inspired blend of Shiraz and Viognier. It's a serious wine with a loyal collector following. Clarendon Hills Astralis. Roman Bratuski. It is a single vineyard old vine Shiraz from McLaren Valley. It's another Parker Magnet. It's pure, it's concentrated, it's age-worthy. Phillip. Phillip Jones made Australia's answer to Burgundy. It's tiny qualities of extraordinary Pinot Noir from Gippsland, Victoria. In 2020, Jones sold the estate to Jean-Marie Fourrier, which is a Burgundy producer. So that tells you how seriously Burgundy takes Australian Pinot Noir. The premium and reserve bottlings are highly collectible, and prices have climbed since the transition. Giaconda. This is Rick Kinsbrunner. This is Chardonnay from Beechworth, Victoria. It's been compared to the best Burgundy. It's allocated, it's super hard to get. Keep an eye on Cullen in Margaret River, Vas Felix, and cooler climate producers in Yarra Valley and Tasmania. Australia's quality revolution is accelerating, especially in its cooler regions, as we see a shift in global warming. All right, let's dig into South America. South America is where the collector wine map is being redrawn in real time. 10 years ago, you'd barely see South American wines at auction, and that's starting to change pretty fast. Let's talk about Chile in the collaboration story. Chile's collector wines almost all involve a partnership between Chilean and European winemakers. And this isn't a coincidence. It's what gave the wines instant credibility on the global stage. Alma Viva is a joint venture between Concha and Toro and Baron Philippe de Rothschild. That's Mouton Rothschild's family. It's a Bordeaux blend from Puente Alto, which is located in Chile. It is Chile's most prestigious wine, and it's deliberately modeled on First Growth. Senya, which is Eduardo Chadwick of Eruiz. He originally partnered with Robert Mondavi to create this. But even after Mondavi's involvement ended, Chadwick continued on his own and took it to a biodynamic sort of method of growth. It's a Bordeaux-inspired blend from Aconcagua Valley, but here's why it actually matters for collectors. Okay, in 2004, Eduardo Chadwick organized what became known as the Berlin tasting. Sound familiar, like the Judgment of Paris? Well, what he did is he invited top wine critics and put Chilean wines in a blind tasting along First Growth Bordeaux and Super Tuscans. Senya and another Chadwick wine, Vigneto Chadwick, placed at the top. Above Lafite, above Margaux, above Latour, the Chilean wines beat the First Growth and the Super Tuscans. This was Chile's Judgment of Paris. The moment when the rest of the world started to take Chilean fine wine seriously. Now, Chadwick has since repeated the tasting in cities around the world. He gets consistent results. They win a lot. Vigneto Chadwick. Pure Cabernet Sauvignon from a single vineyard in Puente Alto. This is the one that keeps beating the First Growth. Don Melchor. This is Concha and Toro's single vineyard Cabernet from Puente Alto. It has decades of consistent quality. Clos Apalta. This is the La Postol's family's Grand Vin. Michel Roland is a consultant there. Carmenere, dominant blend from Colchagua Valley. It's unique because Carmenere, it's a grape that was essentially extinct in Bordeaux after phylloxera, but it found a second life in Chile when they discovered it there, thinking it was actually Merlot. Montes Alpha M and Folly. Aurelio Montes was a pioneer of premium Chilean wine. Alpha M is the Bordeaux blend, and Folly is a Syrah from like impossibly steep slopes. Let's move to Argentina. Malbec's true home. Argentina is a collector's story that is much more focused than Chile. It's about Malbec from Mendoza and a small group of producers who've proven that Malbec can be more than just like a barbecue wine. Catena Zapata. Nicolas Catena is the Robert Mondavi of Argentina. He's the visionary who elevates an entire country's wine reputation. He's the one who pioneered high-altitude viticulture in Mendoza. He was proving that malbec planted at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet above sea level produces wines of extraordinary concentration. The Nicolas Catena Zapata bottling, a Malbec Cabernet blend, is the flagship. But the real collector excitement is actually around the Adriana Vineyard single parcel wines. These are site-specific Malbecs and Chardonnays from a vineyard at nearly 5,000 feet in the Uco Valley. These wines are getting Burgundy-level attention because of their terroir expression. Archeval, Fourrier, Santiago Archeval. These are single vineyard Malbecs from the old vines across Mendoza. Among the first to show that Argentinian Malbec could have real site specificity, that a Malbec, for example, from Altamira tastes differently than one from Gualtariri or another area in Mendoza. A Cheval des Andes. This is a partnership between Chateau Cheval Blanc, the great San Emilion estate from the Bordeaux episode, and Terrazas de los Andes. This is a Bordeaux pedigree applied to Argentinian terroir. Cobos. Paul Hobbs, who's a California winemaker, came to Mendoza and created Cobos. This is collector-grade Malbec. It has a really strong U.S. following. Zuccardi. Sebastian Zuccardi has become one of the most respected winemakers in Argentina. His Finca Pierda Infinita wines are from the Uca Valley are getting serious critical attention. So the opportunity in South America for collectors is actually more than anything price. These wines are significantly cheaper than comparable wines of this quality from Europe or California. Whether the market catches up to quality is kind of the bet you're making if you collect these. But the quality is real. The trajectory is upward, and the producers are getting better and better every single vintage. It's worth checking out. Let's go down to the sleeping giant, South Africa. South Africa might be the most undervalued fine wine region in the world right now, and I don't say that lightly. Wine has been made in the Cape since 1659. That's older than most New World regions have existed as part of the Western culture. But decades of apartheid-era isolation kept South African wines out of the global market. So when the sanctions were lifted in the 1990s, the industry started to rebuild basically from scratch. But the good news? They've really rebuilt spectacularly. The Swartland is a hot, dry region of Cape Town that was traditionally used for wheat. Starting in the very early 2000s, a group of young, rebellious winemakers, they literally called themselves the Swartland Revolution, started making wine from old bush vines that farmers had been neglecting for decades. And those results were absolutely extraordinary. Eben Sadi. This is the leading figure. Sadi family wines. His Colomela, which is a Syrah Mourvèdre blend, is the collector's benchmark for South African red wine. It regularly commands the best prices with comparisons to the very best of Northern Rhone. And his Pallidus White, which is a field blend of old vine Chenin Blanc and other varieties, it's just one of the most original white wines that's being made anywhere. And Sadi is also producing the Old Vine series, which are single vineyard wines from specific old vine parcels. These are starting to get some serious collector attention, and they represent the terroir-driven future of South African wine. Moulineau. Chris and Andrea Moulineau. Their schist and iron Syrahs, they're named for the soil types, show how different terroirs within Swartland create dramatically different wines. This is like that approach that in Burgundy and Barolo make them so fascinating, and they apply it to South African Syrah. Andrea was named Decanter's Winemaker of the Year. Alheit Vineyards. Chris and Suzanne Alheit. They're focused on old vine Chenin Blanc from different sites around the Cape. These are really, quite frankly, some of the most compelling white wines in the Southern Hemisphere. Chenin is created and treated with the same kind of reverence that Burgundians give to Chardonnay. Okay, beyond the Swartland. Canaan Cup. This is the benchmark for Pinotage. This is South Africa's kind of signature grape. It's actually a cross between Pinot Noir and Cinsault. The Paul Sawyer Bordeaux blend, also excellent, worth looking at. Stellenbosch, estate, decades and decades of track record. Mirlust, Rubicon. This is another Stellenbosch classic. Bordeaux blend made since the 1980s. It ages gracefully. Klein Constantina. Vin de Constance. It's a recreation of legendary Constantina dessert wine that Napoleon ordered from exile on St. Helena. It was praised by Jane Austen and Charles Dickens. It's sweet muscat. It's one of the most historically significant wines in the world. By the way, it is excellent, it is back, and it actually ages for decades. So here's what makes South Africa the sleeping giant. The old vines are there. They have some of the oldest Chenin Blanc plantings in the whole world. And the talent is there. They have a generation of winemakers who trained in Burgundy, the Rhone, and came back with new ideas. Terroir, it's also there. Diverse soils, maritime influence, elevation variance. And the prices? A bottle of Columna, it's like less than almost every mid-range Napa cab. That's just not going to last. All right, onward we march to New Zealand, a small country that's got some serious Pinot. All right, so most people know New Zealand for Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. That's like the commercial engine that makes New Zealand wine work. But the collector's story is actually in Pinot Noir, and it comes from two regions. I'm going to start with the Central Otago. The southernmost wine region of any actual consequence in the world, South Island. Mountain scenery designed for a film set. I mean, continental climate, it's got hot days, cold nights, and that gives the Pinot Noir intensity and structure that you don't normally find in the New World. Felton Road is the benchmark. Blair Walter makes Pinot Noir from biodynamic vineyards. Block 3 and Block 5 are the single vineyard bottlings collectors look for. They're regularly compared to Premier Cru Burgundy, but priced at a fraction. Ripon, one of the most beautiful vineyard settings in the world. It overlooks Lake Wanaka. Nick Mills studied in Burgundy. He has taken the estate biodynamic. The mature vine Pinot Noir is a collector pick. Burn Cottage. Ted Lemon, who founded Le Tourry in California, trained in Burgundy, is consulted here. So that pedigree tells you everything about the ambition in this area. Martinborough, North Island, at the southern tip. It's warmer than Central Otago. It's more Burgundian in style. Alta Rangi. Clive Payton and his wife, Phil. World-class Pinot since the 1980s. The vines are originally sourced from a suitcase cutting, which was allegedly from DRC. Whether or not that's true, the wines are outstanding and age well. Dry River. Neil McCallum's estate. Tiny production. Intensely loyal following. Allocated wines. New Zealand's cult Pinot producer. Craggy Range. This is worth singling out because they work across multiple varieties. So the Temuna Road Pinot Noir from Martinborough is excellent. And the Sophia, which is a Bordeaux blend from Hawke's Bay, shows that New Zealand could do even more than just Pinot and Sauvignon Blanc. This collector market is small. New Zealand's collector market is not the same as any of the others that we've talked about. You are not buying these wines to flip. You're just buying them because the quality is extraordinary, prices are reasonable, and you believe that a region making Pinot this good will eventually get the recognition that it deserves. All right, let's talk about the price tiers. We have entry collectibles. These are $40 to $100. Felton Road Pinot Noir, Catena Zapata Estate Malbec, Conocopac Pintotage, Torbreck RunRig, Montes Alpha M. This is genuine quality at prices that make European collectors jealous. The mid-range, $100 to $300. Almaviva, Sena, Sede Colomna, Archivo Feral, Single Vineyard Malbecs, Bass Phillip, Premium Pinot. These are world-class wines for what a decent village Burgundy costs. Serious wines, $300 to $750. Penfolds Grange current vintage, Henschke Hill of Grace, Vigneto Chadwick, Catena Adriana's single parcel wines, Giaconda Chardonnay, Chris Ringland. And your trophy, $750 and up, Grange back vintages from great years, Ringland back vintages, Bass Phillip Reserve. Now notice this ceiling. Most expensive New World wine outside California, a great vintage of Grange, trades for prices that would do you a mid-range Burgundy or an average year of a First Growth Bordeaux. That price gap is the entire thesis of this episode. Whether you see it as a buying opportunity or a reflection of where these wines actually rank is up to you, but I think that this is a serious opportunity. All right, that's it. That's the series. 7 episodes: Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, California, Italy, Old World, New World. We've covered the First Growths and the Grand Crus, prestige cuvées and cult cabs, Barolo and Brunello, and super Tuscans, the Rhone's ancient hillsides, and Spain's patient cellars, vintage port that can live a century, and German Riesling that defines everything people think they know about white wine. Grange made in secret, Chilean wines that beat First Growths blind, South African old vines that the world is only now discovering, New Zealand Pinot that has the Burgundy producers looking over their shoulder. If you remember one thing from all these 7 episodes, let it be this. You don't need to collect from every region. Nobody does. The best collectors I know go deep, not wide. They find the regions and the producers that speak to them personally, and they build knowledge and relationships over time. They visit when they can, they ask questions, they drink broadly before they go deep, and they never stop learning. Knowing the full map, understanding why a bottle of Egon Miller TBA can cost more than a First Growth, or why Chave Hermitage belongs in the same conversation as a DRC, or why a Felton Road Pinot from the bottom of New Zealand is turning heads in Burgundy. That knowledge makes you a more informed buyer, a more interesting dinner companion, and a more confident collector. But the knowledge itself really isn't the point. The point is the moment you open a bottle that you chose, that you stored, that you waited for, and you share it with people you care about. Maybe it is a First Growth from a great vintage. Maybe it's a $50 Rioja that Lopez de Heredia aged for a decade before they'd even sell it to you. Maybe it's a wine that your friend brought back from a trip, a wine that neither of you knows anything about. But it really doesn't matter. What matters is the moment. What matters is that you're paying attention to what's in your glass, and more importantly, who's at your table. Everything that we've covered in this entire series, all 7 episodes, it's just a map to help you find those moments more often. Bordeaux's tradition. Burgundy is terroir, Champagne is celebration, California is ambition, Italy is soul, the Old World is depth, and the New World is possibility. Thank you so much for watching. If this series meant something to you, share it with someone who's just starting to build their collection. That's the best compliment you can give. Cheers.